morning and welcome to the Closer's Inner Circle podcast. I'm Denise Griffitts alongside my co-host Ben Gay III, and today's episode is sponsored by the Closers, also known as the Sales Bibles, written by my co-host Ben Gay III. Now, these essential resources are designed to elevate your sales skills, whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro or somewhere in between. So stay tuned. Ben will share how you can order these game-changing books with free shipping and a guarantee. He's got to tell you that story in just a few minutes. So this week we are opening up the Closers Part 2 to page 205, titled Saving the Ruined Sale. That's scary. I read that and went, oh, geez. Here's an excerpt. The chapter starts out like this. Whether you personally did it, the outside delivery service did it, one of your own support departments did it, it was an act of God, or it was done by the gremlins who seem to inhabit the sales world. A sale that gets ruined and is not quickly saved by a sales professional is among the most costly events in selling, even more costly than not having made the sale in the beginning. So think about that, and Ben's going to discuss. So please join us each week as we delve into the Closers books, also known as the Sales Bibles, and be sure to send us your questions. We will answer them each week. And we love doing this. We start out the show answering questions, and we'll do that as time allows. Ben, good morning. It's Wednesday, and it's always a highlight of my week to chat with you.
Well, same here, and good morning to you. Pleasure to hear your Southern voice. I've had to deal with several people in the last couple of days that don't get the Southern attitude and mood, and I remember thinking on more than one occasion, where is Denise? I need Denise.
And her
I don't need people
attitude.
to... Yeah,
I got
well,
that.
that's all in Southern. Under Southern is a capital letter word, as you know. The South, Southern, Southerners, any of them, capital S. And so anyway, it's soothing to hear your voice and to know that we're about to have an hour of fun and information.
And I love you too. And your wife. I love you both. I don't play favorites here. So tell me, you mentioned in the virtual green room that you've got some great questions that have kind of trickled across. I mean, I don't know how this happens, but every week, I guess it's because we have 7 days in between our chats. People will get in touch with you and go, Ben, and they start asking you questions. I live for these each week, each Wednesday. I'm like, okay, because I don't know what they are. You haven't shared them with me. I'm always as shocked as the audience is going to be. So let her rip.
Well, thank you. I get several, and things remind me of things. I can hear a word, and it reminds me of something that could be a great sales lesson. So I'm sorry, I'm being very unprofessional. A clanging got my attention. It sounded like somebody was breaking in through a window, but maybe they'll take some of Gigi's stuff in mind, so it won't make any difference. The point was that I don't have to wait for a specific question. Something will pop up and remind me. For instance, I had one of those one-word reminders a few days ago and made a mental note, you ought to tell them about that story. And then I get a call from an old friend who said, have you told them the story about how you learned about honesty? Well, there's lots of those stories, so I had to question a little deeper. But what he was talking about, I, as a young salesman, manufacturer's representative, was calling on companies in the southeastern United States, driving around the car and setting up appointments with them. And I wound up at a place I'd never heard of. I guess I should have. Alzheimer's. The departments, I assume they're still in business. They were there for 100 years before I knew about them. But Alzheimer's in Richmond, Virginia was a wonderful company, a great reputation and so on. And somehow I got in the door. What I was selling that day as a manufacturer's rep, I was probably selling 100 things, but I tended to focus in on one or two things to not confuse them or me, because I coined an old term. It's become an old term, but it was a new term when I thought about it. Confused minds don't buy. And so it's our job to not confuse them and to realize when they are confused and clear them up. But my theory was, if I'm lucky enough to get in the door, I'll keep the call down to one or two things unless they ask to see other things or want to thumb through my catalogs or something. So I get in front of the chief buyer at Tallheimer's. And what I'm selling that day is a hairspray that back then, this is years ago, retailed for 88 cents, or a good-sized can, after they keystoned it, after they doubled it. In other words, it cost them 44 cents if they bought from me. They retailed it for 88 cents, which was low enough to be an attention getter on the store shelves and in their advertising. And I don't remember if I used hairspray back then or not, but I was told it was a good hairspray. I think my mother and sister, everybody tested it for me. So I'm sitting in front of this gentleman, I wish I could remember his name, with Tallheimer's, and I'm chattering away about this and that, and I decided to reach back into my memory bank of things I'd heard at the dinner table from my father. He was a food broker, and among the people he called on was a big chain called Big Apple. They're probably around under some other name now, but Big Apple, it was Altman Brothers food chain. And it was an important account to him. He had lunch with a head buyer every Wednesday, set in stone, and talked to him several other times. And he had, at his funeral, I discovered what was called, we may have discussed this once before, the power of the pen. At Dad's casket, I'm standing there as the dutiful son, the lid's open, Dad's lying there. And George Altman came up to me, the head buyer, and he said, Ben, I'm so sorry, and so on. I have something I want to put in the coffin. Would that be all right? And I said, it's all right with me. You may have to jam it in there around the putters and golf balls and everything everybody else had brought. And he put in what turned out to be an Altman Brothers or Big Apple order pad, complete with a pen attached to it. And I said, what is that? And he said, Ben, your father was the last one to have what I call the power of the pen. He called on me every Wednesday. We had a nice lunch and he presented things to me and so on. But he also had the ability to sit in his own office, never call me, and write up anything he wanted and just send me a copy of it. He had the power of the pen. He was a buyer for our company as well as a salesman to our company. And I never trusted anyone that much. And so I realized the other day when I heard of his passing that no one would now have the power of the pen except me and my four brothers. And so he placed the order pad in the coffin, and I thought, is that nice or what? I mean, there's a goal in life, is to get known to be such an honest, reputable person who sells good products and so on. I'm also thinking at the same time, what a nice soft image to put on you, because what I used to hear at the dinner table every night, I'm not saying this out loud, I'm thinking it to myself, was what a, it starts with a B, what a B word Sybil was. I never met Sybil in my life, but Dad would always have a Sybil story. His relationship was excellent with George Alterman, but Sybil, whoever this evil person was always getting in the way and trying to screw things up, and so it took longer than it should to conclude things, strictly because of Sybil, who apparently was blessed with a nasty attitude and poor personality and so on. Sybil this, Sybil that. So I'm presenting to this guy at Tallheimer's, and he says, it sounds like a great idea, but I don't know, are other people buying it yet? Because it was a new thing. And I said, oh, yeah. George Altman at Big Apple is buying it by the carload. I'm not sure what I thought a carload was. I was early in my career, but I'd heard that term, and I knew it was probably, when I first heard it, I pictured Dad's car full of something. Then I realized slowly but surely they were talking about a boxcar on a railroad.
Gotcha.
I said, they're buying it by the carload. And he says, really? And I said, yeah. And he picks up the phone and says to his, whoever was on the other end, secretary, I guess, he said, get me Sybil, and hung up the phone. And then he said, excuse me and keep in mind, Big Apple hadn't bought anything. My father had asked me respectfully to please stay away from his clients, and he would do the same to me.
Right.
Because the name Ben Gay was memorable, and if I screwed up, it would affect his business and vice versa and so on. So I hadn't called on Big Apple or George Alterman with this wonderful product they were buying by the carload. So he says, get me Sybil on the phone. Then he excused himself and said, I'll be back in just a minute. I reached over, picked up whatever literature I had given him and my business card, which was still lying on the desk, fortunately, put them in my pocket and slipped out the door like a thief in the night. And the receptionist in the lobby, said, oh, well, you done that quick? Oh, yeah, done. And out to the car and gone. I don't think I scratched off, but because my Buick probably wouldn't do that. But it was like the Joker escaping a Batman scene to get out of there. And Sybil would have said, Ben Gay, I've never met Ben Gay. His father calls on us. Hairspray? We haven't bought any hairspray in this department in years and don't intend to. I knew how the story would go. It was not good. So every night at dinner, or every time I was around them socially, I wasn't full-time at home anymore, but I was around them socially, I used to wait for, Ben, how are the hairspray sales going? Or something, so that would bring up word had gotten back to my father that I had lied and indirectly involved one of his big clients.
Yeah.
So with my business card safely in my pocket, all the literature, and me racing down the road from Richmond, Virginia, back to Atlanta as quick as I could go, I learned a lesson in honesty. I'd been raised properly. I knew about honesty, but I really believed in the product. Even now I'm starting to justify my lie. I really believed in the product. An 88-cent hairspray can was wonderful. Double your money. Keystone was one of the requirements. It fit all the slot, and my mother and sister liked the product. So what could possibly go wrong? What could go wrong is, even without the internet and social this and so, it was a small community. The buyer at Tallheimer's knew the buyer at Big Apple. And fortunately, it never got back to my father, or if it did, he never mentioned it even subtly. But that was the last time that I ever, you can phrase things in a positive way or a negative way. I do that, and I teach people how to do it. But that was the last time that I looked a buyer in the eye and lied to him. One-on-one in somebody's home, in their office, anywhere else. It literally, I remember driving down the road thinking, I'm too young to have a heart attack, but it certainly feels like one coming on.
Well, you did embellish.
I know what it feels like to escape a bank robbery that's gone bad.
And then have to go home and sit in front of Daddy. That's the worst part.
Wait for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the other shoe to drop for years, and my dad was good at that. When I was still at home and was walking down the street, and I'd been told I could not have a car for various reasons. Among them was behavior and trustworthiness and so on. But until I did something, got my grades up, did this, did that, I could not have a car. And so that was pretty much it. And I couldn't do a major transaction without them knowing. So I'm walking down the street one day and I see a 1936 Chevrolet sitting out in front of this house. I'd seen it in their garage for years. Now it's out the curb and there's a brand new yellow something in their garage. So it was obvious that they had replaced the 1936 Chevrolet with something much newer. So I went up and knocked on the door, and I said, "Hi, I see you got a new car. Is that one?" Pointing to the Chevrolet for sale. And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "How much?" And said, $50. Now, to you young listeners, that may sound like a lot. I mean, it sounds like a joke. But back then, that was $500, and we're looking at a 20-year-old car that had not been polished or kept up in any way. So $50 seemed about right. And I could swing that without setting off any alarm bells. So I bought it, or promised to come back with the money, which I did. Got the car, took it home, parked it a block away from the house so that Mother and Dad wouldn't see it. And I still, to this day, don't know what the leak in security was, but about 4 or 5 days after I bought the car, I go down to, I'm walking to the park, and I walk out the door, round the corner, head down, no car. But there was a note nailed or thumbtacked to a telephone post right next to where I'd parked the car, and it said, "I said no car." So now I know the car is gone. I knew the handwriting, and so I was dreading dinner that night, because that's when, if I was going to get a tongue lashing, where it would usually happen. Dinner came and went, months came and went, years came and went, and my father died, and the car was never mentioned. I guess he figured a note on the telephone pole was enough. But I also remember going to him to get permission. But, "Hi, now I don't live here anymore. I'm making my own money. I need a car. Would it be all right if I bought one?" And I was thinking, that doesn't disappear as soon as I turn my back.
That you're not going to relocate? Where did the car go? Did you ever find it?
I don't know. No, I
what that
didn't
car
go
would be
looking
worth
for it.
now?
Yeah, probably $50,000
Yeah,
or something.
something
That's
like
true of
that.
so many things in your life. If I only had this, if I only still had
Right.
this, if I only still had that. But then the storage costs in the meantime, and so on. So it's probably better gone. But that was, and then circling back, or as Donald Trump is now calling it, weave. That's when you start answering a question, get distracted, go around, and then if you're a good weaver, you come back to where you started and say, and then finishing that up, the closure of the Tallheimer circle, where I was almost caught. And if all I know, he talked to my father at some point, and they laughed quietly and decided to let me swing slowly on the meat hook. But I believe that somehow word never got to my father. I'm opening up an account one day for the National Communications Center when I started the call center industry. And I'm in the phone room, and somebody said, "This sounds like a big account, Mr. Gay. You might want to talk to him." So I get on the phone, and it's the Sharper Image. I don't know if you recall them or not. It's been a few years, I think. They may be back under a different name, but the Sharper Image was a catalog that you got in the mail. The internet wasn't a thing yet. You got in the mail, and it was upscale stuff you didn't need, sort of a toy catalog for grown people, mainly men. But it was starting to make a big splash, the Sharper Image. And so I get on the phone, and I said, "Hi, this is Ben Gay. They thought I should get involved. I'm the owner of the company, and blah, blah, blah. And what is your name, sir?" And he said, "Richard Tallheimer." I said, "Tallheimer of Richmond, Virginia?" I thought, no, that horrible sales presentation I made is going to come back and bite me now, 30 years later or whatever. It was the same Tallheimer family, a wonderful guy, and he became almost instantly one of our biggest clients. And we went on to have a wonderful relationship till the day both companies drifted away. But it was, I had to fight the temptation to say, "Did you ever hear about a young salesman that called on your father and grandfathers and great-grandfathers' store and lied to them and got caught?" But I resisted the temptation. for fear I would spoil another relationship.
There you
So I
go.
went from lying to the head buyer at Tallheimer's to signing up their grandson, I guess, to one of the biggest accounts we ever had.
I just bought from QVC within the last year. This Sharper Image has some items over there, and they had this wonderful. It's like a massager, but it'll beat the heck out of you. It's like a rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat on your bones if
Yeah.
you're not careful. It's got cold, it's got hot, and it was sale items. It was $22. It was like from $120 to $22. I bought three of them. Two of them
Wow.
are going to be Christmas presents. The other one, it's sitting here on my desk. Wherever I am, that thing is. It's so good. But yeah, they're still around. I guess they were rebranded or relaunched in 2010.
Wow. That's comforting. It was a good company. They paid their bills right on time. We took
Uh,
hundreds of orders a day, and maybe 1,000 or more a day for the better part of 10 years. And they and Xerox and a few other really big companies were the early backbone and salvation of the National Communication Center, and therefore the call center world, because no one had ever heard of a call center. 95% of Americans didn't know what an 800 number was, or that they didn't have to pay when they dialed one. We had to educate them as to what it was, that it was free, etc. People would call in and they would talk loudly because it was long distance, and
my
I'm old enough
grandmother
to
would
know
do that. I'd say, "Don't
yeah,
yell at me. Please stop
well, it was long
yelling."
distance.
Right.
We used to gather around the phone in Atlanta, call Massachusetts, and everybody yell like the Mormon Tabernacle Choir so they could hear us all the way in Massachusetts. And then speak fast, because phone calls were very expensive, so it was important you talk fast. So times have changed. I'm really pleasantly surprised to know some version of the Sharper Image still exists. They were a wonderful company.
Yeah.
Assuming there's some connection to the Tallheimers, I have an emotional connection with them.
Well, it says the brand, the earlier consumer products retailer by the name, um, Sharper Image, was founded by Richard Tallheimer and was in business from 1977 until its closing in 2008. It looks like it might have gone bankrupt, Chapter 11 bankruptcy, but then it was relaunched in 2010. So it's definitely still around.
Well, amazing. We started the
Yeah.
National Communication Center in '76, so it sounds like we virtually started together. But each one had caused the other one to explode in sales. We were very good for each other. But I never tried to sell Richard Tallheimer hairspray. Words wouldn't come out of my mouth. If I had free hairspray, I wouldn't have mentioned it to him.
By the
So be
carload.
honest.
Yeah.
What's the lesson in this? Make life easy on yourself. The lies always come back to bite you in the rear end, frequently without you knowing, because not everyone will say, I heard you lie to the head buyer at Tallheimer's 40 years ago or whenever it was. And that's the reason I'm not buying today. They're not buying from you today because they heard a story in which you weren't honest. And so I've probably been bitten more times than I realize. I'd like to think the story died there that afternoon as I fled the building.
But it
But
didn't.
maybe
It's still impacting you. I mean, you're still very bothered by it.
I am. I
I
truly
know.
am.
Yeah.
I remember looking frantically through his private papers trying to find my business card. And I'm thinking, he walks in and here I am rifling through his desk. Ben Gay's son is not only dishonest, he's a burglar.
Oh, jeez. I, I'm not going to say what I'm thinking. I'm using my filters. Just
Good. I'm proud of you.
me too. I don't know how long it'll last though. But it's a terrific story, and it absolutely you have to have integrity. People, you say it, you've said it forever. People need to know you, like you, trust you, and you've added to that over time that they need to feel comfortable with you. I never can quite remember that last part.
Feel safe with you. People
Feel
buy from
safe
people they
with you.
know, like, trust, and with whom they feel safe.
Right. And that makes absolute sense. So, and over the years, you have built this invincible integrity that people really can't come and say, hey, man, you pulled my leg, you lied to me. You'll tell on
If
yourself. You already
yeah,
did.
I
So
can
nobody
tell
needs
them
to tell
straight
on you.
up.
You can do it.
If you, I can tell them straight up. If your last name isn't Alzheimer's, it didn't happen.
Right. Right. But and we've talked about this so many times in the arena of sales, if you will. Listen, when I was in between jobs, I had closed down 2008. I mean, bumper stickers in this part of the country. We'd read them going down the highway. Last person out of Louisiana, turn off the lights. They were leaving. A lot of people went to Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know why. I never have known, but they were out of here because the oil field, I mean, it was just shut down. Everything was bad. And I remember at that time I had shut my business down. I was going back, I was thinking about getting a degree. I was kind of stuck. I didn't know what I needed to do. And you know me, you don't want me in your office. I don't play well with others. I run with scissors. And if you want coffee, you get it your own damn self. I'm not going to do it. So I knew I had to create my own business, my own lifestyle, if you will. But 2008, 2009, it wasn't fun. There was a lot going on that we
Yeah.
were all very perplexed. But what I did know that I would never, ever, and to this day I hold firm, I will never be an insurance agent. And no matter what resume I put out there, oh, we want you to come. And it was always an insurance agency. No, I don't believe in it. I don't trust it. I know you have to have some of it, but no, I could never comfortably be an insurance agent ever. And I knew that. Didn't matter what the money was or what they promised it was going to be. I couldn't do it with a straight face.
Well, I'd like you to know that you've now blown off several of my best clients and customers who happen to be in the insurance business.
I
But
know, but I'm not that
I
person.
know
I
exactly
can't.
what you mean. Yeah.
Right. They
Yeah,
would
and if
not
you
want
don't,
me, trust me.
yeah, and here's a little different way of looking at that. If that's sincerely the way you feel, right or wrong, then you shouldn't be in that business anyway, because it doesn't fall under the other parameters we've laid out. Pick a quality product that's competitively priced, spend your day talking to qualified people, and don't sell anything you wouldn't buy at full retail. So that's sort of rule, within the first rule. If you don't believe in insurance within reason, I mean, there's some things you have to insure. You can't drive your car without it, for instance, or shouldn't.
Mortgage
But if you
insurance, and
don't,
I get all that, but there's a lot of
yeah.
insurance that I'm like, no, no. Okay, that's a hell no.
How'd you
So,
like to be in the insurance business today in Florida?
oh geez, can you imagine?
Yeah.
And
You've had a lot of,
yeah, I feel sorry for those people. They've got to be stressed to the top of their heads. But I was thumbing through this chapter yesterday, and yesterday was one of those days where I was able to equate pretty much this entire chapter with my podcast. And I'll have to tell you why. Because I was getting emails. I don't know what has happened with this little agency that they send me some terrific guests. They really do. But I think they just opened up their entire, they want me to interview their authors. I think they quit saying Denise doesn't want these people. Denise, this is who Denise is. It's business, it's entrepreneurial, blah, 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 blah. I finally had to write an entire letter and send it, and it's my hell no list. It really is. I don't, and I had to really work on it to keep it polite but firm. I said, listen, these are some trigger words for me. If they show up in an email from you to me, I'm not going to even respond anymore. I'm just going to delete it. DEI is one. Inclusivity, another one. The UN, no. I mean, it just goes on. Diversity, DE, all of those, politics, anything to do with politics, no. And, I finally just said to him, I said, you've been sending me a lot of terrific authors for a very long time, but I feel like you're just opening up the drawers and tossing people at me. Stop it. These are people,
You've been through the quality people. Now you're
shut the drawer. I don't want these people. Drama, alcoholism. It's like, what? I mean, I was on a tear yesterday, like, no, 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 stop it. And I finally had to write the letter, but it was coming and I knew it was coming. But if I were to accept all of these people, it would really dilute the impact of my podcast. And people would be going, what happened to her? What's going on here?
Yeah. I turned down, pardon me for coughing, I turned down a lot of podcast appearances for the flip side of that same thing. They've heard my name, listened to our show, whatever. I don't know how all that happens or care, and therefore we want you on the grandchildren who believe their family came from Mars, or whatever, and think of the exposure you'll get. Well, that's among the reasons I turn them down. The exposure is them and their crazy aunt.
It's
Who's
negative.
locked in the closet. Yeah.
Right.
And it's not me. I ask myself frequently, responding to something or doing something, will this help sell a book? And if the answer to that is no, I'm not interested. There's nothing wrong with your product or service or podcast or whatever. But I know why I'm here. I know why I'm taking my time. And if it doesn't fit into those parameters, I'm not interested. Especially the ones that give you the strange reputation. I could destroy my reputation within a week, the positive side of my reputation, within a week by appearing on and or endorsing some of these strange things, or seemingly strange. Some of them might be fine or have some merit to them, but it's like we were talking about not too long ago about Billy Graham being told by one of his mentors early in his career, don't get involved in politics, don't endorse anybody. And he said, well, why? I have these beliefs. Because the minute you open your mouth, you'll lose half your supporters. They're split. They were split then in the late 40s. They're split now, and endorsing one or the other is. I have very strong political views, and in some ways they pop up on the internet and so on when I'm commenting about something. But it's things you have to figure out. If you study me, not that anybody would spend the time to do that, but if you study me, you can pretty much figure out which side of various issues I would come down on. It's not that difficult, but I don't go out of my way to look crazy or to entertain those people who've earned that reputation. Don't have time, don't have the money, don't have the interest. So you're making a smart move when you start shying away from that. And it sounds to me like they probably have, I'm making up numbers, 20, 25 good clients, and they've been through those, and now they're in the bottom drawer. Who are going to send to me this week? Oh,
yeah.
Remember that guy in Omaha who had the encounter with the space aliens? He's available. I bet he is.
That one didn't show up yesterday. It'll probably come in tomorrow. But and some of these people did look very interesting for somebody else.
Yeah.
I would not be the host. I could not do it. For starters, a lot of it I'm just going, oh, that's baloney. So I can't do it. And others there was a lot of drama. There were two that, one had to do with alcoholism, another had to do with childhood trauma. It's like, no, that has nothing to do with business. So no. And, I was very polite about it, but listen, please close that drawer. Here is my trigger words. If they show up in an email, I'm not going to even do my polite, I don't think blah, 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 blah. It's it's just going to go away. I'm not going to respond.
Absolutely. I'm with you. It takes a while to learn. And you spend enough time on the internet and so on to know somebody says they believe in cotton shirts. And the first response in the line is usually, well, Trump and the communists endorse cotton shirts. So what do you think about that? I mean, where does the mind go? I may have
I
told
don't
this in
know.
casual conversation the other day, but one of our favorite restaurants, it's a little Chinese place. We probably go there once a month, but not many choices in Placerville, so we like it. Opened up the paper the other day, and there's a picture of the front of that restaurant with an SUV sticking out of the front. Read the story, study the picture, and here's the deal. It was on the paper, but I also saw it on the internet, one of those neighborhood things. And had it hit at a crowded meal time, it would have killed probably 12 or severely injured, killed 12 or 15 people because of where the chairs are in that particular area. And the restaurant's going to be out of business for 3 or 4 months. It was probably hanging on by its fingertips to start with, because of the restaurant business and the way the economy in certain areas is going, and put, I don't know how many people they have in there, 10 or 15 people out of work or on to unemployment. And then when they reopen, many of them will have found other jobs, so they won't be available. You got to build a whole new staff. So basically a car
Happened
crash
during
by an
COVID.
elderly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people would lose their jobs. The restaurant would try to come back, and they were starting basically from their grandma's basement. They had no
Exactly.
staff. They might have had the recipes, but that was pretty much it. Their customers had gone somewhere else.
Well, the first entry on social media, Facebook, whatever it is, or the little neighborhood thing, here's the car, here's the story I just told you, and the first entry is, or link or whatever you call it, is, I love their shrimp. And you go, hello, we're discussing the near deaths of 15 people, the demise of a business, 15 people being put out of work, and your comment is you love their shrimp? Get a life.
Yeah, that belongs on
Tune
Yelp
in.
or something. But so, how did the car, I have to know now, how did the car get in there? Was it deliberate? Was it an accident? Did
I
somebody
think
faint?
I was one of
What
those things.
happened?
I wasn't there, and I'm sure the insurance company has one story and somebody else has another. But the gist of what I got was it was an older person who maybe had a little confusion over the gas and the brakes, and
But
he
nobody
had
was
it.
really hurt then.
No,
Oh,
no,
good.
that's the good news. But he did hit 2 other cars, or else he'd have gone out the back of the restaurant. He hit 2 other cars before he got to the restaurant. So, it, but the good news is when they come back, make a mental note. They serve great shrimp.
It is a little thoughtless. I agree with
Yeah,
you. And I say that as a person who loves shrimp. I eat it the way
yeah,
other people eat
yeah.
chicken. I eat a lot of shrimp. Oh my gosh. Well, I hope that whoever it was is okay because, you know, whoever that person, man, woman, they've got some guilt right now. They
Oh,
do.
sure. I bet.
And I bet
Uh,
they're not talking about hairspray.
or cherry red lipstick. So there are advantages to any
Last
situation.
week. That was
Before we run
last
out of
week.
time, you want to get into the book?
I do. I actually, and I'm writing a blog about this, so and I'll share that with you. I've started writing it yesterday because like I said, I was going through that chapter and thinking about, you know, sales is so much like how I operate my podcast. It really is. I accept the people that I find fascinating who have a story to tell. They have something good to offer a large audience, but I can't just let them in because they ask. And the sales is the same way. Whatever
Yep.
side you're on, whether you're selling something or you're the guy saying, "Get me Sybil," if you're going to. You're, there's that give and take, and you have to know where it is that you stand, and you have to be firm on where you stand. So I wrote some questions, and we can open up with the chapter, but I've got 9 questions. What signs do you look for that indicate a sale may be slipping away? Excuse me. 2, hang on a second. Is how do you gather feedback from prospects to understand their concerns? And I just kind of went down the list. So I'm actually writing a short little article about this chapter. So, you go ahead and you start losing my voice. Tell us what you want to talk about in this chapter.
Well, your 9 questions would be a great starting point. But my real point when I asked that question to bring us back into line, you and I have a tendency to drift a bit when we're chatting, is that it's really a
we call that
simple...
BSing. We're just BSing the whole. It's a chat.
it's really a simple concept, and salespeople have a tendency. I've been there. When I talk about salespeople, it's not some foreign species to me. I am knee deep in being a salesperson. Have been my whole life, and have made a career out of it. So when I say salespeople do this and that's stupid, I say that because I've been there. Salespeople lie to their customers. I lied to Mr. Tallheimer's head buyer. Salespeople exaggerate this. When Jimmy Rucker and I got in Holiday Magic, some of the people who recruited us were making $10,000 a month, they said. Most of them, I think, were, but whatever. And this is in 1965. That's $100,000 a month. So we started saying we were making $10,000 a month. It seemed like the thing to do. And then time goes on, and they say, "How's your business?" Well, now you got to come up with a better answer. 20,000, whatever. And then we got to 40,000 a month, and we were always trailing behind. If we said we were making 10, first time I said it, we weren't making anything, but I was confident we would. Then we were making 10, but we said 20, et cetera, et cetera. And by the time we were really making 40,000 a month, part-time. We still worked for my father in the food brokerage business. $40,000 a month, which is $400,000 a month in today's dollars. It was not insignificant money. And Rucker said, what level are we going to next? And I said, here's an idea. Let's not talk about income anymore. We got the nice cars. We got the nice clothes. We're respected. We come in the meeting. Let's just say more than we expected, or something like that. Or else we would have been rather quickly at a $500,000 a month, exaggeration, for which we would have had to make $5 million or whatever. So it was an easy path to walk down where the exaggerations start and so on. So that was how we stopped that and got back on the track. As William Penpatrick, the owner of Holiday Magic Cosmetics, and Napoleon Hill were standing together, and I forget how the conversation came up, but the 3 of us are standing there, and one of them said, as we were discussing whatever this dilemma was, one of them, I'll give credit to both of them, said, "When all else fails, try the absolute," there was another word in there, "truth. When all else fails, tell the absolute truth." And that, again, has been one of those guiding lights. It's just easier. And with the sales slipping away, the first reaction is, it didn't happen. Well, let's not call them. Maybe they won't notice that the product was short shipped or was a week late or whatever. Get over that little hurdle. Call them. You be first. As J. Douglas Edwards taught me many years ago, when you have a built-in objection, bring it up first and brag about it. Don't wait for them to tell you the shipment was late. You already know that. If you're good with all the tracking things are, now I know when the shipment we send out, if it's big enough to pay any attention to, I know where it is within 10 feet anywhere in the United States and to a degree in the world. So if it's a week late, I know it. If it was important that it gets there at a certain time, I know that. So I'm not waiting for the phone to ring. I'm on the phone. Mr. Zawicki, this is Ben Gay. I have good news and bad news. Which would you like first? They usually say the bad news. I said the shipment is not going to be there when I said it was going to be there. What's the good news? I'm waiving all shipping costs, and I'm making you a priority client. When you call, your order will go out first, whether you ask for it to go out first or not. But mainly, I want to humbly apologize. It is my fault, and as long as we're doing business together, I will always have that in my mind that we accidentally screwed you over once, and I'll always be trying to make up for that. Fair enough? And the problem is solved normally. And it's true of whatever the problem was. Bring it up first, brag about it, get on the phone, or send. And in those cases, I get on the phone. I don't want an email that says, "Hi, everything I told you didn't work out," or "None of what I told you is going to work out." I'd get on the phone for that. And if you get voicemail, that's fine. Have your thoughts together and leave a clarifying voicemail as to what happened. But the trick is, get ahead of it. Don't sit there like people do when the price of something is high, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like I give the Rolls-Royce example frequently when I was working with British Motors in San Francisco. What's the biggest problem you have? Price. Always price. The starter kit with a Rolls-Royce now, I think, is about $350,000 or whatever if you want the low-end model without hubcaps. So since that's it, let's not give a full sales presentation waiting for the price shoe to drop. Bring it up first. Hi, my name's Ben Gay. Pleasure to see you. One of the great things, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about what you do. One of the great things about working here is I get to talk to people who feel comfortable investing in a car for $350,000. I mean, that's amazing. I meet some of the most fascinating people in the city, in the state, sometimes in the world. What do you do? Watching their eyes to see if they dilate or they vomit in the back of their mouth. If they don't, you've got somebody who knew when they walked in what a Rolls Royce costs. So you bring it up first, brag about it. You got a shipment problem or a broken promise problem, bring it up first. Turn it into a positive. Don't wait for the phone to ring. Don't wait for the other shoe to drop. Take the blame and shape it so that before the call is over, before the contact is over, you can also take the credit. 2, with that said, give me one or more of your 9 questions.
I will. I got a little bit distracted though and scribbled down a note real quick. I was telling you in our virtual green room that I didn't sleep last night at all. I'm not normally an insomniac. I just don't sleep a whole heck of a lot. Well, last night I'd slept almost none. I wanted to read. I have this curiosity. I couldn't even tell you what it was all about, but I needed to read. So, and I knew we're always talking about Dr. Napoleon Hill, who was your mentor. And I wanted to go a little bit deeper with Napoleon Hill. And I came across a man named, and I'd never heard of him, Ralph Waldo Treen. Never heard of him. But apparently he was a big influence for Dr. Napoleon Hill and Henry Ford. So I'm looking into him. So anyway, just thought I would put that out as an aside. And tonight I'm going to try to sleep, see how that works out. Okay, so one of the, we shall see. One of the things that you talk about in this chapter is maintaining communication with prospects, especially when a sale seems lost. So my question there was, what strategies do you use to maintain that communication? They're walking out the door or they're crawling out the window or they're texting their wife saying, "Come get me out of here." What do you do? We've done it all. What do you do? How do you save that? Or, try to reestablish communication might be the better question.
Well, if something bad happens, I said bring it up first, figure out a way to brag about it and plunge on. And there are 2 sides or issues with your question. One is you've made a nice sale. How do you stay in contact? Until the sale is delivered and completed, don't. unless there's a question or something. The last thing I want to do is talk to somebody, and I'll use talk for email, social media, conversations, in person, whatever. Last thing I want to do is talk to somebody who just made a significant purchase, who with a misstep of some sort could decide they want to think it over or start backing out. So unless they mention that they have a concern, in which case I'm on them like white on rice, but unless they mention it, I want to stay away from them. Let's not have a conversation that reopens the negotiations, however accidentally. Now, if things are going well and then there was a problem, that's a different idea. But the real answer, and I never heard the term until a year or two ago, but it's really true, is drip marketing. I was doing that for years and didn't know it. Staying inside, I used to clip out articles, still do from time to time, articles out of magazines or newspapers or whatever, and send it to people that I was doing business with, but maybe we didn't have anything going on right then. Saw this, thought of you, and that type of thing. Now, with the internet, I have a whole bunch of people I'm in touch. I probably will be in touch today with 400 or 500 people who appear on various lists who might be interested in certain things, not the broad spectrum of how's the weather in Florida, but broad spectrum to them might mean something of interest to them. And if they fall in that category, they get a little something. Don't ask for an order. Don't ask for anything. Saw this, thought of you. Many of the things I share on the internet, my contribution is FYI, for your information. They know me well enough to know that I've pre-screened it, or else I wouldn't send it to them. And it's just for your information. I don't have to write Gone with the Wind as an attachment, just for your information. And what I'm really doing subconsciously is I'm reminding as many clients a day as I can remind without being a pain to them, without being annoying, that I'm still alive here and thinking of them. And so that's how you maintain that relationship. Got a specific problem, jump on it, solve it, take credit for solving it, make sure they remember that. And I'd make a note in their file so that it comes up from time to time. 2 years from now, I might say to you, I was looking forward to talking to you because it's so great that we don't have to discuss again the large shipment we sent to you in Louisiana that wound up in Alaska. And we laugh because we're buddies. We go back. We can talk about anything. But drip marketing, whoever came up with that term, is really clever in that it's just a modern way of saying, I'm here, I'm alive, I still love you, still want to do business with you, and here's a gift, even if it's just an article or whatever. Here's a gift without cost or obligation. So I try and make it hard to forget me, but not in a... Oh, and the other thing is I don't ask them to do anything in that type of thing. It's not like, read this and get back to me, or read this and look at my calendar and pick out a time when we can spend 20 minutes together on it. I don't want to spend 20 minutes with them when we have nothing really to talk about, nor do they. And I got that. But I am Ben Gay III, and you are my friend and client, and I'm still here, and I'm still thinking about you. And that's usually enough. It contributes mainly to that being the go-to person. They're having a conversation with somebody 30 days later, and they say, I've been wondering about this. Well, I know a guy who can help you with that. His name's Ben Gay. I've got his business card right here. Let me give you his phone number, whatever. And most of my business comes from that. The Closer series, as you know, and you're about to be part of it, the Closer series is the best-selling, most popular product on sales, selling, marketing ever written in the history of mankind. We haven't run a paid ad. We used to run full-page ads with Success Magazine and all the trade magazines and successful, Think Positive type magazines. Full-page ad every month for the Closers. That was among the reason we sold 10.5 million copies when we quit counting 30 years ago. But we have not run, and I say 30 years out of habit, I think it's 35 probably now, haven't run a paid ad in 30, 35 years because we sent them what we said we were going to send them. We backed it up. We've had out of millions of copies of the various books sold. We've had 2 returns, grand total, in 30, 35 years. And I still have them down in the shipping department. I like to remind myself that our unconditional, no questions asked, lifetime guarantee, money back guarantee, has consequences. 2 times we've been called on it. So, yeah, I'm aware of that, and I'm proud of our record, etc. But no paid advertising. My business is all word of mouth, reputation, referral. And that's, talking to somebody who just gotten selling yesterday, that may not be reassuring because it took a while, but it didn't take 35 years. It took a year or so to have it start. And then it picks up momentum. And one of the problems I have now is getting excited about, people say, how are you going to double your business? I said, God, I'd have to work to do that. We do what we do now by answering the phone and responding to emails and texts. That's all I want. I must get
and
10
you do
a
need
day.
to be there. Right. You need to
Yeah,
be there. You need to actually answer the phone. And I don't
yeah.
know why that escapes a lot of people. Well, and I have a toll-free number. I have voicemail. But I also actually answer the phone. It works.
There's an idea.
I know.
Yeah, I'm asked frequently, you answered the phone. I said, yeah, it was ringing. It's sort of hard to ignore when it rings. And the phone has, unfortunately, through automation and so on, has become somewhat of a nuisance. I let more go to voicemail than I used to. And I ran a business that took in 88,000 incoming calls a day at the National Communication Center. So I'm not a novice when it comes to answering the phone. But it can be annoying. The trick is, though, to make sure that when your name pops up on their caller ID, that's good news to them. I've seen, answered the phone rates and open the text rates, 5%, 3%, stuff like that. Well, that's like junk mail. You can mail absolute something of no worth at all and get 3% to rip open the envelope and look at it. I want when they see our mailing envelope, a number 10 standard business envelope, looks like good news. It's red, white, and blue. It's got the Bengay, the closer's logo on it. And then when you flip it over on the seal, when you flip it over where you would seal an envelope, there's a great big foil sticker there. Red, white, and blue says, God bless America. A good friend of mine told me one day, not Michael McNerney's his name, told me not too long ago. He said, Ben, I always look forward to getting mail from you. It's like Christmas morning. Don't know what's in it. Might be nothing of any real significance, but it's exciting when I see it. And when I see it's from you, I know it's of worth. Well, that took 35 years, not with him, but in general, that took 35 years to be someone that they know they can trust. And I guarantee you, we've never discussed this, but I guarantee you there are people who send you emails and texts and so on. As soon as you see the name, their name or their company name, or one of those trigger words that you were talking about with your agency, you just delete it. Right? I've answered or opened 10 emails from you. I've never found one of any value, so I don't need to look at another 10. It's just delete, delete, delete. And that's, if that's happening to you, shame on you. You've got to build those relationships, drip market, stay in touch, and when something goes wrong, get on it. That's far more important. There's an old study, I don't know if it's true or not. I have 2 departed friends who used to make up studies that I see quoted all the time. They made them up to fill up space in a magazine article 40 years ago. But let's assume for the moment it's true because my gut says it's close. If you have a happy customer, they will tell 3 or 4 people. If you have an unhappy customer, the statistic for some reason stuck in my head, they will tell 17 people. and they will tell it with greater enthusiasm than they told the three other ones, the three good ones. So stay on top of it. Understand what you're selling at any given time, which is you. The product's interesting, but what you're selling is you, because a year from now, the product or service may have changed, but you haven't. I talk about frequently Nolan Bush. He came to a meeting I did in Jackson, Mississippi, 50, we'll just say 50 years ago, when I was a young starting guy in holiday magic, and the meeting didn't go as billed. I took full credit for that. Wasn't my responsibility. I was doing the meeting as a favor to a friend, but I took full responsibility for it. Apologized in the meeting at the time. We've done business off and on ever since, and a week or two ago, we solidified a deal based on, really at its root, based on me owning up to a problem we had created 50, 60 years ago. So it has lasting qualities. I love to hear, and I've heard people say it and heard that they said it. Well, if Ben Gay said it, you can bank on it. There's a goal I hadn't thought of. It's not in my notes while talking to you today, but there's a goal for you. If you're one of our listeners, your goal is to say, well, if Bob Jones said it, it's true. You can take that to the bank.
Right.
And you all have friends like that, or business associates, very few probably percentage-wise, but you have people that you would say that about. Well, they said it's true. Going back to Merle Fraser, one of my early mentors, who's still with us, even though he's old, I think 12 years older than I am. If Merle Fraser said something, that's it. It's like it came from the mount. Merle Fraser has never misled me in the slightest way, except in a funny story. He's the one that taught me to say and act as if, never let the facts get in the way of a good story. So you can buff up a story and so on, but if it's not a humorous story or joke, and Merle said it, it's true. You may or not be interested in the offer, but one thing you can start out with, it's true. In our last conversation, we talked about my only requirement of Mort Scott, our genius chemist, Holiday Magic Cosmetics, and then another company after that. My only requirement of him was I want to be able to stand on the stage, hold up a jar of whatever it is, and say, this is the best this product can be. There's nothing else you can do to make it any better. Therefore, we have an unconditional lifetime money-back guarantee and so on. Your goal should be to become like that jar. If Ben Gay said it, or Denise Griffitts said it, or Merle Fraser said it, it's true. Take it to the bank.
And I'm going to repeat what you just said. You said, hang on a second. Word of mouth, reputation, referrals, and I added, underneath that, I added integrity.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's built into all of those.
Right. Fascinating.
If you're not known for having integrity or speaking the truth, you're screwed. It's like selling the Yugos that we talked about the other day. Oh, after our conversation about Yugos, the automobile, for those of you who weren't listening last time, I looked it up, and they are out of business. I was afraid they had
even
made,
in Mexico.
Yeah.
The first time I wandered across into Mexico, and I saw these, you couldn't even tell what kind of vehicles they had been in another life. They were chained up, and they were chained together, and they were just horrible. And after we were talking last week, I wonder if they all moved to Mexico, the border towns. I have to wonder if there's any Yugos over there. Probably not. They're probably not good enough for them even.
For sale in a public place. give me a name, Facebook or whatever. What's the one everybody advertises their lawnmowers in, so on. In a
Yeah.
public place in the United States, there is one Yugo currently for sale. One. And I'm
I've
not sure
never
how it's
seen
survived.
one. I don't even know what they look like.
Little boxy pieces of junk.
Yeah, it's
I held back when we were talking the other day for fear they had tried to make a comeback and had made it, and I didn't want to knock them currently. The good news is they did not come back. I was right. It's a piece of junk, and people want me to teach them how to sell it. Don't know how to do that.
it's hard to sell stuff that smells like poop. It really is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are definitely running out of time. Ben, boy, this went fast. And I will write this article. And I've got some more questions now that we've talked. Tell people where they can get the book and how they can reach you. Are you still doing your masterminds and your consultations? Do you have time in your schedule right now?
Yeah, I actually have two or three that I think are going to open up pretty quick. I don't operate on a set number. I operate on how much time is my current crew taking, because there's only so much time I'm willing to devote to it. So it's not like I have 3 slots for sure. I have about 3 slots, and if one of them is filled by somebody who's going to take up a bunch of time, then I have no slots. But what Denise is kind enough to be talking about is the mentoring program that I have, which is based on the teachings when Dr. Napoleon Hill was my mentor, paid by others the first year. The $50,000 for the first year in 1967, $500,000 a year in today's money. I wouldn't have paid it, but that's because I didn't know any better. The second year, when William Fitzpatrick told me the first year was his gift, the second year was up to mine, I gleefully wrote Dr. Hill a check for $50,000. It was probably one of, if not the most valuable investments I ever made. So if you don't have a mentor, someone who's been where you want to go, knows what they're talking about, has a good reputation, etc., get one. If you can't find one, I'm available. Just shoot me an email expressing your interest, and that email should go to bfg3 at directon, that's short for Direct Connect, directcon.net, and the front part, BFG3, stands for Benjamin Franklin Gay the Third, just the numeral 3. Send me an email and say in the subject line, mentoring, and I'll send you, no cost, no obligation, no phone calls. I'll send you basically how the program works if you're interested in getting in touch with me. A better starting point, though, for newcomers might be just to get the books so that you know what we're talking about. And that's the Closers series of sales and marketing books. Denise Griffitts' book, The Closers Part 4, is about to join the family. And you can get all of our current publications by going to a special site we have set up at stores, STORES ebay.com / all one word, Ronzoni Books, RONZONE Books, BOOKS, and there they have the Closers series and a couple of cousin books. They're like a book by J. Douglas Edwards I wrote for him after he died. It's technically not in the Closers series, but it is. So look over that. I recommend you get them all. We wouldn't have published them if they weren't great. But based on your time and your budget, get what you can. They all come with an unconditional lifetime money-back guarantee. And at that site, they have special pricing, better than my own website, and free shipping, better than my own website. So that's how you reach me. How do they reach you, Denise?
I am easy to find. The best way really is email. I spend more time in front of my monitors than I do anywhere else. I probably should start to wean myself away from it, but I'm always on the internet for a lot of reasons. So the best way is honestly just email me at support@yourofficeontheweb.com. And you can also email me. I've got a toll-free number, 888-719-6711, but really email is best. I can keep track of things better that way. So anyway, what are we going to be talking about next week, Ben?
I would like to, this is going to sound odd because we spent weeks on it, but I'd like to double back to sales infiltration for a short review. Yeah, lots of things have come up when I get questions. Well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? So I think that would be a great place to double back to for part of next week's show.
Well, and you have said many times that if you read nothing but that chapter, you've recouped the cost of the book. So
Absolutely.
It's an important chapter. Okay, so everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to send us those questions because we can think of them on our own, but we'd rather hear from you. We really would. When I was reading the chapter at 3:00 this morning, I came up with 9 different questions. I've read this chapter multiple times, but for some reason at 3:30 this morning, I went, ooh, and I ran in here and grabbed a pad and started writing down questions. I read it differently. I saw it differently. So this is why we kind of skip around and we may go back to what we call very pertinent, very important chapters. Because you may hear us one time talking about it. The next time we're going to be talking about it in a different way that maybe make more sense to you or make you have your own questions. As we conclude another episode of the Closers Inner Circle podcast, we want to express our sincere gratitude for your support. We get a big kick out of the engagement that comes our way, and it keeps this podcast thriving. And we hope that you found today's discussion both insightful and inspiring and fun. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Ben, thank you.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day, young lady.
I'm planning on it. I'm going to try to sleep tonight. I'll let you know how that works out.
All right.
Talk to you later. Bye.